All right, here we are once again. No introductions necessary, I think. Friday night. Who sang that song? It's Saturday night and I ain't got nobody.
No clue.
Was that Freddie Fender?
No clue.
Okay, well, how you doing today?
Making do. How are you?
I'm all right. I slept really well, but I'm still kind of drag ass. You know what pisses me off is that not only is the meditation not consistent, but also sometimes it's painful. I mean, it's like not necessarily physically painful, but it's like psychologically painful to sit there and try to struggle through this thing. And I'm just about fucking sick of it.
You mean painful in that you are so antsy you would rather be doing something else?
Sort of.
See, that's different.
You know.
That's different. It needs to be medicated to.
Because yesterday I had a really good meditation session, and it's like you get on top of it, and you're like, okay, stay on top of it, You consciously stay on top of it. Don't let any thoughts intrude. And tonight you sit there and you're just like, why am I wasting my time on this? And then the day before, this is a good thing to bring up. The day before, I was having a good session, and the fucking phone rang at 10 p.m. And so Bonnie was asleep. I come running in here and pick up the phone, and it's a telemarketer. It's the same person who called a couple of days before, and I just blew my top. Told them, don't you ever call here again. You put us on your no-call list, and I slammed the phone down.
The thing is we're already on the do not call registry.
Yeah, we should have noted the phone number and reported them. Not that it would do any good. You know, if the Republicans had their way in total, you would be at the mercy of corporations every waking moment of your life.
Oh, I think we already are in a lot of ways. Consider the influence of somebody like Elon Musk, who has only to tweet a bit of nonsense and it ends up streaming across every internet service. So you open up your computer and there it is in the news. Elon said. And you're like, fuck Elon, he's a fucking idiot. We're up there with Joe Rogan and Russell Brand. Why do you want to hear from these idiots?
You know, apparently, I heard something just a few minutes ago. Apparently, Elon himself is influenced by big name influencers on Twitter and so forth. People who just have bizarre philosophical stances. And he's like, "Ooh, it sounds good." He'll retweet what they said and make declarations. Apparently now he's also wading into global politics by coming out firmly for the German hard right.
Yeah, he's basically endorsed them. I saw that. At some point or another, he may wade into territory of pro-Nazi stuff, at which point the Germans can take action, legal action, according to their laws.
His basic life philosophy is, I am where I am because I'm a superior being, and therefore I should run everything, and people like me, you know, the superior beings, we should run everything.
He's an egomaniac. He really is.
And the whole thing works hand in hand with the anti-democratic leanings of Christianity. One of the reasons that the hardcore Christians hate democracy is because their core philosophy is that humans are a debased creature, and given free rein to their natural impulses, they will choose sin and choose evil every time. So if you have democratic rule, then the majority of the people who are dirty sinners will choose the most evil path possible. Therefore, they must be led by the nose into the correct thing by those who are righteous and good. And since we have appointed ourselves as the righteous and good, we will eliminate democracy, and we will teach them the way. And so it plays right into the framework of billionaire despots, Oh, Lord. Well, let me tell you a little story. Before I get into that, let's see what Lonnie has to contribute for a second.
Nothing. Go on with your story.
All right. I wrote an editorial yesterday, or day before yesterday, in response to the renewed calls on the part of the libertarian / Republican / Trumpist wing of everything to privatize the post office. All right, the gist of the story is this. This is one example of why you should not privatize the post office. It's Christmas time, and we have hugely increased volume of mail, volume of packages at work. We have a machine. Our basic function is to feed this parcel sorting machine. Okay, so there's a conveyor belt that takes all the packages up to the sorting area of the machine, and I find all these clearly children's games and puzzle books and things strewn out on the belt. They've come out of a package. So I go through everything and gather them up, and I held them in my hand, and I announced to everybody, these are some children's Christmas, part of some children's Christmas present. We need to find the box these came out of. And the woman on the other side of the machine said, I saw a box that was open. It had a Pictionary game in it. They must have fallen out of that. She stopped what she was doing and helped me go through every package on the conveyor belt. Couldn't find it. We went down the line looking in every receptacle that the packages fall into. Couldn't find it. I said, okay, look, I'm going to put these into a little box, and I'm going to put them with a note over on the carrier supervisor's desk telling her to alert all the carriers that in the morning when the carriers get here, look for an open box, and we'll put these go in there. So I had to go to lunch. I came back, and she and another woman had found the box. It was from somebody's grandmother in California going to somebody in Georgia. So I put everything back together and taped it up and sent it on its way. And when as we were looking for the open box, I told this woman that was helping me, if they privatize the post office, you'll never see any employee going the extra mile again. Because it will just be a paycheck.
Profit-driven.
That's right. It'll just be a job. Just write it off. The way a missing Amazon package will be written off. Well, this isn't a consumer exchange. It isn't a capitalist exchange. This is a gift from somebody's grandmother. So you do, and that's the thing. This isn't just me and this woman. This happens every day at the post office. People going the extra mile to make sure that things are done correctly and people get what they have sent in the mail. And it's medicine too, goes to the mail all the time.
You've told me a lot of these stories. I think the most common thing that you did at North Metro was you would have to look up zip codes because people would forget that, or they would have gotten mixed up in the stream, and it says Duluth, but it's Michigan instead of Georgia. And so, because it has the wrong zip code, what you did was you went and you found the streets. Is there this street and this number on the internet in Duluth, Michigan versus Duluth, Georgia? And you would find out which one it was, and you would correct it. Another thing I found charming were your animal stories. You want to tell some of those?
Years ago, when I worked at Athens the first time, a friend of mine who's retired now was working in this room where the express mail and the registered mail and the live animals going through the mail would go. And I'm walking by, and she's screaming, and she says, come here and help me. And all these little baby birds had gotten loose from a box, and they're running around at the bottom of this container. And I'm helping pick up all the little baby birds and put them back in the box. And one of them had his foot. I mean, these are tiny little birds. They weren't baby chickens. They were like baby guinea fowl or something. And one of the birds had his foot stuck to the tape that wrapped the box up. And the leg was like toothpicks. And I'm having to disengage this little bird's tiny little feet, tiny little toes from this piece of tape. And being a father, you adopt certain mannerisms from having raised your own children. And I'm saying out loud, "It'll be okay, baby. It'll be okay. I'm gonna take care of you, baby." And I get all the birds back into the box, right? And we send them on their way. Well, the next day, as I'm walking away, I start thinking, "Oh my God, you were saying baby, baby out loud. I wonder if she heard me say all that." The very next day, I was out on the open dock driving a forklift, and some asshole had put a box of baby birds right at the lip of the dock where they could get kicked or knocked and fall off. I slammed on the brakes of the forklift and went running over to get the baby birds, and from behind me, I hear that this woman who I had helped with the birds the day before say, "Don't worry, Lance will take care of those birds."
I thought that was sweet.
This, and privatizing the post office will ruin all that. You're never going to see some FedEx driver, or God forbid, some Louis DeJoy surf going the extra mile.
It's more than that, though. It's the whole warehouse setup.
Mm-hmm.
A number of years ago, you and I watched a documentary that covered the FedEx distribution of New York City. It had this enormous machine, and everything was just put on this belt and gone off into all these different branches and stuff. And the type of things that have to be hand dealt with, that the post office deals with, you know? Mm-hmm. They aren't going to get that kind of care and concern when it comes to one of these massive warehouses where everything is stacked, you know, multi-levels high, and they're just shoved in for whatever way that it fits the best. I can't imagine that FedEx and other places are equipped to handle the amount of livestock the way that you guys do it.
I'll tell you something else. As things stand now, only the United States Postal Service is allowed to deliver first-class mail.
Mail.
That is to say, official government missives.
And certified legal.
Such as jury summons. Now, if they change all that, if I get a jury summons from FedEx, it's going straight in the trash. I never received any such thing.
It was left on the porch, not in some designated legal receptacle.
That is correct. That is correct. And I'll tell you something else. As things stand now, their post office is required to deliver to everybody.
Yeah.
No matter where they live. I heard this has been 15, 20 years ago when I heard this. I don't know if it's still true or not. There are people living, I don't know if it was the Grand Canyon, but it was somewhere like that. They're living down in the Grand Canyon. And to deliver to them, they have to deliver to them on the back of a burro.
There is a tribe of Indians who actually live in that area. And there is ecotourism to go into the area. But you are correct. They are required to deliver mail to these people who live in the remote areas. When I was reading the Hillerman novels, he focuses on the Navajo reservations. And you have this massive amount of land, thousands of miles across, in the middle of nowhere. And even for the sheriffs in the series to get there, they have to know exactly where everything is. And so do the mailmen who go into these areas on these reservations. They have to provide mail service to the door, because the idea is that if you have something registered or certified, it has to go into that person's legal receptacle. And some of these places do have group boxes, etc. now, the same way that new subdivisions have to have group boxes. But yeah, you're required to do delivery to remote areas, and as is, FedEx has a combined program where FedEx handles the delivery up to a certain point, and then they deliver to a USPS, local mail, post office, and then they do last point of delivery. I forget what the exact service is called, but FedEx won't even handle it. And some of these areas, they don't take it to the last closest. They take it to whatever's nearest to their route. So, yeah, it just isn't offered in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
I think you can count on people like Murkowski, who's a Republican, a senator from Alaska, to support keeping USPS open.
I'll tell you something else. Steve Shives has YouTube channel, and he has a video about this situation, and he mentioned something that I hadn't thought of. The post office is mentioned in the Constitution, so if they do away with it, they're going to have to amend the Constitution in some way or reinterpret it. And Clarence Thomas, Mr. Originalist Intent, will find no trouble in his heart with, reinterpreting the Constitution in light of new Republican policy. Anyway, this is all pretty depressing. I don't want to think about it. But apparently, word on the street is that our current supervisor will be forcibly moved to some other shift, and we're getting a new supervisor. And anytime this happens, there's always worry about what this new person will be like. Because you never know when you're going to have somebody who is so ambitious that he feels he must crack down on every little thing. You were 2 minutes longer on your break. That sort of thing. I've had supervisors like that in the past, and it never works out really well for me or them. But who knows what's going to happen. Oh, by the way, they are. I noticed. Oh fuck! I don't want to talk about that. Anything else going on?
I want to know.
Okay, we've had the situation at work with the electric pallet jacks being broken for months on end. And there's this other bizarre piece of apparatus that apparently they used to use, but it was never really good for hauling equipment. And the postmaster keeps harping on, well, why can't you use that? Why can't you use that? Well, number one, the battery is worthless in it, and when the battery was good, it wouldn't charge properly, and it moves too fast for a human to keep up with, or moves too slow or something anyway. And I don't think and first of all, it's only good for dragging chains of equipment on wheels. It's not good for moving boxes on pallets. Well, anyway, I got tired. When I first got there, it was sitting in the middle of the floor, unable to move. It was just this gigantic piece of shit sitting in the middle of the floor, taking up space. So I dragged it with a pallet jack all the way in the back of the building and shoved it up in the corner. Well, last night I was walking around looking for something, and I noticed it was gone. And I realized, oh shit. The postmaster has decided to tell the mechanics, we're going to get that thing working, and that'll shut the people up about, all their complaints about the
lack of equipment.
Right. So, yeah, that's right. Don't take our suggestion because we're just lazy buffoons. Try to get this stopgap measure to, deal with the issue. And it's going to be a fiasco as usual. And what the hell does he care? He's going to be transferred to Gainesville pretty soon. So he doesn't give a shit. He's a short timer. Oh, Lord. Oh, here's another piece of news. I was going to read all 6 of the original Dune novels, and I got about halfway through with the third one and decided, I've had it. I'm not finishing this piece of shit book. And I gave up on the whole thing. It is horrible. Just horrible.
Conversations.
Yeah, and it's just nonsense. Even as a work of science fiction, it fails. Because it introduces all these concepts and terms, but never explains any of them. Because they just, the guy, Herbert, just wanted to immerse you in the world and let you figure it out on your own. Well, there's nothing to figure out. What is Shiga wire? It's never explained. What is this? What is that? It's never
Why should we
explained.
care?
Why should we care? I don't give a shit. You know, and magic powers. Ooh, race memory. What? Give me a break. I'm tired of it. And I just had it. I really wanted to read all of them because it's supposed to be one of, the science fiction equivalent of Lord of the Rings. Well, no, it's not. In Lord of the Rings, you had this nebulous bad guy over in the distance, and you had a group of heroes that you got to identify with, each one having its own personality and each one having its own contribution to make to the story. And in Dune, everybody's a bad guy. Everybody. Oh, that's more like real life because everybody's a mixture of good and bad. Well, that's great for a novel by Tom Wolfe or something, but not in this type of situation. It's just stupid.
Is he the one that did the Gordon Gekko character? Who did that one?
No, that wasn't based on a book. Gordon Gekko was originally in 1987's Wall Street.
Who wrote that?
It's a movie. I don't know if it was based on a book or not. I don't think so.
So you've been talking about Dune, and you've got this character at the heart of it who's this God King, and it got me thinking about where our conversation tonight started with Elon.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember having history courses, and you began studying the development of human civilization. And it seems that every major region had the development of the God King, some sort of king that was had some sort of divine place, given his position by divinity, or was elevated to divinity, etc. And I think that that's what all these billionaires want, is the God King thing status, don't you?
Yeah, there's a scene in the movie Chinatown where Jack Nicholson's character is confronting John Huston's character. John Huston is a millionaire who is doing all these nefarious deeds in order to get control of the water supply of L.A. And Jack Nicholson asks him, how much more money do you need? How much better can you eat? What can you buy with your money that you can't buy out with more money that you can't buy already? And John Huston's character says, the future, Mr. Gitz. And that's what it is. It's not just controlling everybody now. They want to control the future direction of mankind. And of course, we all do to a certain extent because we all have a vested interest in it, because most of us have children and all of us have ideas about. But the thing is, nobody really knows what the future has in store, but they think they've got it all figured out.
What is that famous phrase that came out of, I think, World War II? For such and such to happen, good men need do nothing.
I don't know where the phrase came from originally. The only thing that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
I think that currently, with the rise of the billionaire God King status and these celebrity on the internet status, is for them to have all these people follow and worship them. Think about all these. And
so many do.
Yeah. Think about all these people who follow Joe Rogan. They have little names for themselves. And then the Elon types, the tech bros have the tech bros who follow them. And then there's this whole crypto scam stuff, the crypto bros who follow and are just willing to give up everything and follow all this stuff.
Well, hold on.
Of what?
Is that light bothering you?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, I'm going to go turn it off. Hold on. The thing is that
people are buying into this. They're not just buying into these ideas. They're buying into it with their physical money.
But they're buying into the personalities who are
cult of personality,
pushing all this stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
what's really strange is that some of these people say no gods and no masters. And yet they're adopting these masters, and they're treating these masters as if they're gods. I mean, what type of atheist would we be if we worship these type of people?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the world is changing so fast, and not just from technology, but from social and cultural changes, that people are get scared and they retreat back into the most basic thing they have, which is religion, and that makes them all the more susceptible to manipulation by the wealthy who use that top-down authority of religion to get them to
Yeah, think about what Tucker Carlson's done recently. In the last year since he left, was forced out of Fox, he's suddenly found religion at a certain level. He's claiming that he's having visions and dreams and stuff.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's Trump, who in the first presidency called himself the chosen one.
Yeah,
You remember that?
I alone can fix it.
Oh, there was that too. Yeah.
You know, in the 1920s, I think it was, as evolution and socialism were becoming more and more accepted, you had a backlash of people retreating into that old-time religion. And a lot of the institutions that are pushing this shit today were founded back then. Bob Jones University, you know, that whole thing was founded on the idea that if your child goes to a non-religious university, they might come home completely warped and twisted by it.
My fucking bitch mother said that about my father. He went off to university and suddenly got too smart for himself.
Yeah, it's
They met at some sort of Methodist mixer or something her mother sent her to meet some
really?
people. And he was there with his family. And so they met in religion. And so they got married, and then they went off to college. And my dad kept going to college. He's all but dissertation on his PhD. And they split apart. He discovered there was things in the world outside of his very narrow window he'd been brought up in. But even in that very narrow window that he was brought up in, they were okay with science. They were okay with divorce. They were okay with, a number of things that she's not okay with now.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
Assuming she's still alive. I have no idea if my mother's even alive.
You'll find out.
I prefer not to. Kind of like Schrodinger's cat,
Is she alive or is she dead?
Don't care, just keep her in the fucking box.
Oh, me. I'm trying to think anything else has happened this week. Been trying to get back into Guided by Voices again lately.
Really?
Yeah.
Sprout?
Yeah, and Robert Pollard, yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
You gotta play Crutch Came Slinky now.
okay.
Okay. This is my favorite song by them.
Because they were, what's the word I'm looking for? Foundational for me in my aesthetic of writing songs and not giving a shit if the song is recorded professionally or properly or not.
Do you remember my dad offering to buy you recording equipment?
No.
And you no, I like lo-fi sound. He's
Yeah.
like, that's a thing? Because, when my dad was...
You know what? That sounds familiar.
Yeah, when my dad was coming up, you went from mono to stereo. And so it was like, oh my God. And then suddenly your car, you had speakers all around. And then in the house, surround sound and all this kind of other stuff. And so for him, the idea of you going lo-fi is just unheard of. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I remember being a kid and quadraphonic sound was all the rage. And it sort of disappeared the way 3D movies do every 10, 15 years or so. Oh, me. I could really do with a 3-day weekend. Actually, I have 2 days off this coming week because I have Christmas off and I have the day after Christmas off.
You have to take me to a doctor's appointment.
Mm-hmm. And then Friday next week I have a bone density scan.
You need to go get your foot looked at. You need a surgeon on your toe.
Why?
That knot needs to come off.
Oops, sorry. What knot?
That one right there. Nope, other foot. That needs to come off.
That's just natural, what do you call it? Callus building up from rubbing against the inside of the shoe. That's all.
Lance, I have never seen anything that large in my life.
It's not a knot. If you feel it, it's just callus. It's just extra skin. It's not like a growth under there. No. That's just.
I'll take you to see Dr. Cannon. General surgeon, he can do it in the office. Dear God, man.
Do what exactly?
Take it off.
What? So I can build another callus?
He's gonna have a head growing out of it any moment. It's gonna pop through.
Both toes are the same. You see?
No.
You don't see that.
That's scary. Keep that away from me.
Years ago, I was picking at my toes and I tore the toenails off my both little toes.
Dear God.
And just tore them off completely. And when they regrew bizarrely, and they've always been that way ever since.
You're a bizarre man.
My right index finger nail, about 2 weeks ago, I was getting out of bed, and I caught my nail. I was trying to get the bed sheets out from under me, trying to get out of the bed, and I cracked my nail.
Jesus.
Way down below, and I knew it was going to be a problem. So basically, I filed it down so that it wouldn't snag on anything else, and it's giving me trouble playing guitar because it's sort of raw there, and I can't play guitar properly. So it'll be a couple of weeks before this grows out and I can use the pick properly.
I suddenly remembered you guys got a visit from the union this week, didn't you?
Yeah, the top 2 people in our local mail handlers union came down to visit, and they were just appalled at the conditions. And we're going to get you some equipment. And blah 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 blah. Well, I'm waiting for them to say, "Oh, the postmaster assures us that he got you a new piece of equipment." You know, it's like hooking a chicken up to pull a dog sled. It's not going to work.
I think in this case it's more like a dog pulling a chicken cage around. It's going to be too powerful and go crazy.
Yeah. You got to see this thing. It's not going to work. It's like asking
get run over.
It's like asking your parents when you're a kid for something that they think is a little outrageous, a little bit expensive, a little bit extravagant, a little bit too much. Well, you should be satisfied with this instead. And they offer you something that is inadequate, for your needs or wants. Oh, Lord. Why can't you be content with this?
Yeah, it's like your mother and the guitars.
Yeah, anything that I did or spent money on that they thought was an extravagance, they would just throw a fit about because, why aren't you saddled with a wife and kids and credit card debt yet by now? You're 17. You ought to be, in the hole by now.
Why do you need...
So anyway, I had an acoustic guitar and I had an electric guitar. So I bought a second electric guitar at some point, and then I bought a third, and my mother threw a fit. Why did you waste money on that? You can't play but one guitar at a time. And Bonnie's response to that story was, you can't wear but one pair of shoes at a time. You can't drive but one car at a time. You know, why don't you just have one cup and one saucer, one fork in the house? You know.
Yeah, I mean, why do you need so many different clothes to go to Sunday church? You only wear 'em for 2 hours on Sunday morning. Why don't wear the same thing over and over, Jane?
You know, they tried. Oh, I don't want to get into it. It's just.
Your parents utterly failed you. You do know that, right?
Yeah, and they didn't.
Outside of your mother reading to you, your parents utterly failed you.
They didn't know how to deal with me. They didn't. You know. They didn't know. My mother had a fumbling grasp of what was needed, but she didn't quite know how to put that into action.
They had zero, they exposed you to zero cultural resources
Well, you know,
at
I can
all.
think of 3 different times. My mother knew I liked to draw and wanted to get better at drawing. And I can recall 3 different times when she signed me up for some sort of art program, drawing program. There was this woman I don't even remember her name or what she looked like. I remember the subdivision where she lived, but it must have been summertime because I don't think I was in school. I don't know when it was, but anyway, I must have been about 5th grade, maybe 6th grade, and I would go over to her house for drawing lessons, right? And so her idea was, well, I'll set up a still life scenario of pottery, and you're going to use charcoal on this piece of paper and draw these pots. And of course, I have no interest in doing this, and it's completely boring. So anyway, after 2 or 3 visits to this woman, she basically got fed up with me. And she said, why don't we take a break for a minute and watch cartoons so you can get some ideas? That was one day. And then there was another day where she thought, he doesn't seem to be interested in this at all. So why don't I think of something that boys are interested in and give him, you know, this as a subject. She goes, okay, I got an idea. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you a subject and you draw what you think of when you think of that subject. The subject is war. All right. There was a children's author named Ed Emberley who put out a series of books on how you can draw using very basic shapes, triangles, dots, lines, squares, and he would show you step by step. Here's how you draw a lion just using squares and triangles.
My favorite was the Bigfoot character he drew. It was so cute.
So this was around 6th grade because I had gotten into the habit of drawing these little people using triangles and dots and lines, and I would draw little cartoons with them and amuse people at school with them. So I drew a bunch of little soldiers, maybe 7 millimeters tall, using little triangles and dots, and that's what I drew for her subject of war. And you could just feel the disheartenment just wafting off of her in waves. Another time, there is I don't know if it's still owned by the university, but there was a house out near the university golf course. And there was a woman who lived there, and she gave art classes, and my mother signed me up for them. And there was maybe 20 kids in the class, and we would draw out in the front yard. And I don't know what the brief was, but she had us drawing something, doing something. And she came by and she was just livid at whatever I was doing. And she said, no, come with me. And there was this old dog she had. And she plopped me down in front of the dog. She goes, now look, draw this dog. So I start meticulously drawing the nose of the dog, drawing it in detail. And she came by and threw a fit. And she grabbed the paper from me and she goes, no, like this. And she's drawing with rapid strokes. Draw a brief sort of sketchy outline of the dog. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Oh my God. I'll tell you the third story I remember. The Linden House is a institution owned by the Athens government where they put on art shows and all this kind of stuff. Well, anyway, one year they had one summer they had an art class program, and I can't remember exactly what we did, but there was a kid there that I sort of made pals with. He had great big pieces of paper, and he was drawing dinosaurs, just drawing them. And he was putting veins in the neck and stuff and striations of the tendons and everything. And I said, how do you know how to do that? He goes, I just make it up. And I thought, I didn't know you could just make it up. I didn't know you could just draw a dinosaur and just sort of like your own personal impression of one. And, well, here's where the veins are or whatever. You know, I had no idea you could do that. Anything to add to that?
No, we're a very frustrating child.
Yeah. Did you take art classes as a child?
I won an art scholarship at London.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was up in the attic and it was claustrophobic.
Right, yeah, upstairs, yeah.
It was very claustrophobic. That was the impression I had of it.
I remember
deal with claustrophobic.
I remember the ceiling being really high. It was a wooden space up there. That's where we had the class. Oh, Lord.
When the kids were small, kids being kids, they show interest in certain things on their own. And Peter became fascinated with dinosaurs. And he was 2 or 3 years old. And he took up drawing dinosaurs. And they were just like most kids that are 2 and 3. It was these lumps of a circle for the body and a circle for the head and a stick for the neck and little padded feet and tails and stuff. But we had these very simple children's books that had very simple pictures of dinosaurs. I mean, like constructed out of like construction paper and shapes and things like that. And so it aided him in making dinosaurs that were unique. Triceratops, of course, had the 3 points. Brontosaurus had the long neck, etc. And so he made these individual little pictures of all these dinosaurs. And he comes up to me, isn't it? Pachycephalosaurus. Look, Triceratops. And yes, my 3-year-old said Pachycephalosaurus. So I took all of those and I scanned them in and I made them similar in size. And I put them together in a mini book that he could fit in his hands. And he was so proud of his work. So I ended up making multiple versions of that little dinosaur book by Peter and gave it to the grandparents and aunts and uncles.
I'm sure my parents really appreciated that.
I'm sure they threw it away as soon as they got home.
Yeah. Oh, man.
And then there was the birthday party where Reed turned 7 and she got to select her middle name.
Right.
I said, Reed, it's going to be a very special birthday party. And I want you to draw a picture of yourself at a birthday party. So she drew herself as a little girl with a birthday hat, and there was a table and cake and candles with fire on them and balloons and streamers. And so she did a basic pencil sketch. And I went through with colored pencils and colored everything in and made it a big colorful thing. And then scanned that into the computer and made a birthday card for her. We were never negative about the kids. We didn't go, you have to do it such and such way. Reed decided to do a comic strip. I don't know if you remember this or not, but it was based on stick figures. And she was
I remember her doing
She
stuff
was
like
obsessed with princesses and such. And so the princesses were stick figures, but then they had the cone hat and the little flowing wisp of cloth that came off the hat. And then they'd have scepters and orbs and crowns and all this kind of stuff. And so we would have them draw little cartoon strips. And usually they were single page with multiple panels across it, like draw lines and go through the page. Now, what is the thing that you had her do about the bird and the boy with her brother, Cuckoo?
I don't remember that. What are you talking about?
Peter is a cuckoo. Do you remember that?
She took a picture. She took a picture of him, I think, with her. With a Polaroid camera. She took a picture of him.
She drew
and
it,
she pasted it on something, and she wrote, "The little cuckoo, the worst boy in the world," which I thought was funny.
It was really cute.
Okay, on a different topic, I'll tell you something that happened this week. The first thing, one of the very first things that brought Sam Neill to the public consciousness was this mini-series that was first broadcast on BBC, I think, early 80s, called Riley Ace of Spies, sorry, who is based on a real spy in the early 20th century named Sidney Riley. And I remember it being on PBS in the early 80s. I remember seeing snatches of it. I think I saw the very last episode, or very end of the very last episode. I must have been 12, 13, something like that. And I always wanted to see it, because I had the book. I've had the book for years, the book it's based on. So anyway, Bonnie found it on Amazon or something. And she's like, "This sounds good. You want to watch it?" I said, "Oh, I've wanted to see this for years." So we sit down and start watching the very first episode, and it's fucking boring as hell. And we're like, oh, we gave it like 45 minutes. We're like, "Do you want to continue with this?" No. It's just, ugh.
Even now, when you mentioned the last one, you got to see the last episode, I thought, should we go and try to find it? And then I went, no, let's not. That was not worth it at all.
See, that was the thing that got a lot of people thinking that Sam Neill should be James Bond. And I think he should have been James Bond when he was younger, you know.
He was younger, he should have been.
Like maybe 88, 89, somewhere in there.
Instead of Timothy Dalton.
I don't think Timothy Dalton was a bad Bond. I think the movies he was in were bad.
Or terrible. Now, he's a fine actor.
Yeah.
He was in, Lion in Winter? Wasn't he in that?
He was really young in that. He was a villain wasn't he the villain in Rocketeer?
I think he might have been. Was he also the villain in charge of Doctor Who's Homeland in the new...
Yeah, I never saw that. Yeah. I had given up on Doctor Who by that point.
Yeah, I realized I didn't see anything past Matt Smith the other day. I can't even tell you how many there were. I think even Reed's given up on the series.
Yeah, she said that...
She's a Whovian from the get-go.
Yeah, she said they just screwed it up when they brought in Jodie Whittaker and all this other shit. I gave up on it. I'll tell you when I really gave up on the show. There is an episode where the Master becomes dictator of Earth or something. What was the name of the black woman who was a doctor that he was companion for a while? What was her name?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't even know what doctor you're talking about.
I think it was David Tennant. He had this...
Martha.
Was that her name? Okay. The doctor's been put away on ice or something. He's out of the picture for a while. And so she spends years traveling the earth, preaching the gospel of the doctor, telling everyone there is this person who can save us. And so once she has spent enough time spreading the doctor's name around the Earth's population, they all cry out like in a prayer to Jesus, and their mental energy summons the doctor back. And I just thought, this is Messiahship gone mad. And I gave up on it at that point.
I think the part that broke my heart was when Wilf died with David Tennant. I mean, when David Tennant died for Wilf. And I was like, I don't know that it can possibly go beyond this for me. And I did try the Matt Smith series, but it broke me.
Well, that's
with
true.
the
I did
whole-
like Matt Smith a
Oh,
lot.
and the Dr. Donna, that one broke me also. There was a certain point in which the emotional aspects just became too much.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say.
And-
That whole shit with David Tennant and Rose being in love, but he can't really go through with it, so he creates
There's a
a
duplicate,
mortal
blah,
duplicate of
blah,
himself.
blah.
The whole point of the Doctor originally was that he didn't have romantic relationships. There was no romance or sex.
Though the first one did travel with his granddaughter, you know.
Yeah.
Well, obviously had to have sex at some point, dear.
Well, but I mean, there's no. I'm falling in love. It's not like James Bond, where you have a different paramour with each adventure.
It did get to be a bit much.
And plus, I mean, I liked David Tennant and I liked Matt Smith, but at the same time, the way I conceive of the Doctor is that he's an old man. He's like a grandfather figure that takes people on,
So maybe of the new series, Christopher Eccleston got it right.
He was good. He was okay.
I mean, maybe he played it just the right way, is my point. He didn't go all overboard. He got out just the right time.
When I was really into Doctor Who, that was when they were showing the Tom Baker and Peter Davison eras on the local PBS station. So when I was really into it back in like maybe 5 or so, I knew nothing about Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor. And it was about maybe 10 years ago, I rented some
Is
of
he the one that looked like one of the
Mo Stooge.
Mo Stooge, yeah.
When maybe 10, 15 years ago, I checked out some of his episodes from the library, and I was shocked at how good he was. He might have been the best.
Him.
John Pertwee, the guy with the white hair.
And then John Pertwee gave way to Tom Baker.
Right.
And John Pertwee's son, Sean, is now doing all kinds of acting. He looks so much like his father.
Yeah. But I really think after all this time, Patrick Troughton might have been the best Doctor of all. He was really, really good. He was not only sort of silly, but he was also could be really serious too. Oh, Lord. I don't know what else to talk about. I don't want to get too emotionally riled up about...
Science fiction character?
No, my personal...
Who was your favorite companion on Doctor Who?
Companion? Probably Sarah Jane. She was absolutely wonderful. I loved Sarah Jane.
You know, I really liked her too. And then the new series came along. And it's really funny. Donna, I hate it. I fucking hated her. I wanted to bitch slap her when she first came on. Because every time she started whining about something, you just like, shut the fuck up. Go away. And by the end of the series, you're like, best fucking companion. I like that they brought Sarah Jane back. I'm sorry that they did it with the Child's Sarah Jane Chronicles, things like that.
Yeah.
It was just...
I'll tell you who I hated the most. From my limited knowledge of the whole expanse of the history of the show, I hated Mickey. Because he's always whining. I'm just the tin dog, am I? You know what? Just go home,
In
okay?
the Martha show that you were talking about where she goes around on the planet, he's grown up and joined the resistance with her. And he's part of that. So he does grow up, but he is a whiny little bitch. You're right.
Yeah.
They go back and they show how he imprinted on Rose to begin with. It happened right after her dad died or something. And so you kind of understand it, but then again, he is a whiny little bitch.
Okay. Are we about done? Anything else to talk about?
Yeah, I'm tired. I need to get pain pills.
Let's see how many minutes we've been talking.
Too long.
54. That's not bad.
That's a long time.
All right. Well, we'll be talking to you after Christmas.
Sometime.
In time for New Year's. Bye-bye.